People here. I know we have people here from Guyana. I see Yannick. I see our friends from Barbados. Hi, Vidya. I see friends from Trinidad and students of the IGDS and so on. So, welcome to you all. Welcome to this conversation on listening to the spiritual power of seeds and plants across time and lands. Just to say that the Botanical Afterlife of Indenture is a project that I began to engage in, which explored how it is plants can tell the stories of our post-indenture lives. And part of the joy of this project and its journey is engaging with others and having the opportunity to learn from them, and also having the opportunity to share their work with you all and to put us all in conversation with each other, not just those who are turning to plants as a way of thinking about post-indenture aesthetic praxis and realities, but also those who are thinking about plants in terms of post-coloniality, decoloniality, the post-plantation realities of the Caribbean across race and geography and historical experience as well. So it's nice to see those of you that are here in the room. Thank you so much. I'm going to introduce our speakers and then we are going to turn over to our ritual. First, Anima Jhagroe-Ruissen is a henna and performance artivist, and she challenges dominant narratives and ways of being, creating spaces for collective resistance, care, joy, and reimagination. Informed by her life experience as a Moksi of Surinamese-Hindostani and Dutch-Zeeuws descent. Did I pronounce that correctly, Anima?
Yes, it's a region in the Netherlands.
As well as her role as initiator of the artistic collectives CTRL+ALT plus and stories of Kathak, Anima explores communal processes of decolonization and intersectional approaches to collective liberation of expression. Through sensorial, henna, and dance workshops, performances, and training, she fosters cross-community conversations and transformations toward alternative futures, and is hereby guided by her teacher, Henna or Mehndi. And actually, this all happened because I came across Anima's work with plants and henna and thought it was so important for us to have these transoceanic conversations to continue to build community around the art being produced. Next, I'd like to introduce Fazle Shairmahomed, who is no stranger to Trinidad and Tobago, who creates performance rituals and altar installations with dance, plants, film, and text. Fazle goes by he, she, they, or them, and their work focuses on spiritual processes of decolonization and creolization, through which spaces are being created for interactions between different cosmologies and the sensorium. These are all things that we can ask about, as they're so interesting to hear from you, thinking about how you're doing this work. Community is a basis from where they create, which requires interdisciplinary collaboration, and inspiration for Fazle's creations are rooted in interaction with queer communities, such as the Hangout 070, Queer Muslims, Hindostanis, and queer and artistic communities such as Cloud Dance Lab, Masala Movement, and also the CTRL+ALT plus. More in particular, she's inspired by Muslim Sufi traditions of is it Nawa, Zar, and the whirling dervish, Japanese Buto, Surinamese Winti culture, Hindu rituals, Caribbean dance traditions such as soca, chutney, and the bubbling Palestinian dabke, Muslim funeral practices, and the club. Fazle graduated in cultural and social anthropology from the University of Amsterdam and Middle Eastern studies from the University of Leiden, and his work focuses on long-term spiritual and artistic dance movement research on the snake plant, which migrated with Fazle's Nani from Suriname to the Netherlands, as well as exploring the spiritual power plants and the snake plant as a big element to deepen processes of creolization. And finally, Farah Rahman, art science artivist, artist and art educator. Farah's artistic research practice is similar to that of an ethnobotanist who analyzes peoples and cultures through field research. She draws inspiration from her own family history in Suriname and India and aims to use various media techniques as research tools. She creates multi-sensory works, which we'll be seeing some of, as also from Anima and Fazle, where long forgotten memories about the political or spiritual relationship between plants, people, nature, and culture play a significant role. Her work is characterized by the use of medicinal plants, scent compositions, and various cultural heritages. By deconstructing these materials, she investigates their structures and meanings. She's exhibited her work in places such as Stroom Den Haag, Zone to Source Gallery in Amsterdam, the Dutch Photo Museum, Museum, Worm Rotterdam, Art Science Kunstgallery, I'm not sure if I pronounced that right, and has given or developed art educational workshops for organizations such as Film Hughes Den Haag, Into the Great Wide Open Festival, and others. She's earned a bachelor's in audiovisual design in Rotterdam and obtained her master's of art science from the Royal Academy of Art and the Royal Conservatory in The Hague. She's a member of the Analog Film Workspace in Worm Rotterdam and Stroom, The Hague artists. So these are wonderful, complex, creative biographies, which I think can really signal to us how the conversation can open up with everyone else in the room. Welcome to you all. And I'd like to hand over now for a ritual just to pay homage to the spiritual power of plants. Friends in the Netherlands, can I hand over to you all a little bit for this?
All right, so I have to be honest, I couldn't fully prepare the ritual because of the difference in time zone, and we started a little bit earlier. But I have a little bit of preparation in that sense through Henna. So I would like to invite everybody just to look here in the screen and observe what you see here in the bowl. These are different forms of henna that you can see. She's moving. There are seeds, she's a paste, and as you can see, she likes to move and has her own way and her own will. So that is also a way that she taught me how to reclaim spaces and connect with ancestors. So with henna in this bowl, I would like to invite you just to slowly close your eyes and breathe 3 times in and out. Think about henna, maybe in her form as a plant, in her form as dried leaves, in her form as a henna paste, in her form as a color on your skin. Whatever form of henna attracts you, where you feel attracted to, connect to that form and breathe with me 3 times in and out. In through the nose and out through the mouth. So breathe in and slowly breathe out. Breathe in and breathe out. Breathe in, hold it a little bit, and slowly breathe out. Feel your body in the space where it's in. Imagine yourself, the henna, her form, and how she is also a way of honoring our ancestors by decorating their bodies with henna. And if you're ready, you can slowly open your eyes again. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Anima. We're starting with that's just kind of brought into the room the plants that we will be honoring today as we talk. So thank you for that. So I just really want to hear so much from you all. This is really exciting for me. It gives me a chance to hear about your art practice and for us to learn from it. So can I just start by asking, how did you all begin to think about working with plants and their legacies? You know, how did this idea of plant spirits come into your consciousness and into your work? And we're open to start wherever it is, with whoever wants to jump in.
Yeah, I can start. Yeah. Hello, everyone. My name is Farah. Yeah, I've just been introduced. Yeah, to talk about when did the plant spirits came into my life. I think it was well, I know when it was exactly in 2016. This is when I started personal healing work with plant medicines, and yeah, through this ceremonial work with different plant medicines, which took place over the course of a few years, I really encountered, yeah, different plant spirits during, yeah, dreamlike visions. And as the shaman said in these ceremonies, you form a relationship with these plants, and well, a lot of things happened during these dreamlike visions, but one of the most important things that I got from it was that there was also a few moments that it connected me to my ancestors. My ancestors are the contract laborers from India, and then they yeah, we're working on the plantations in Suriname. So these dreamlike visions came into yeah, into me, and that's how I started realizing that also my ancestors were working with plant medicine. And later on, I continued more of my research, and for me, this was the trigger to investigate how can I visualize this as an artist, because I was already an artist, and how can I visualize this in my own medium? And yeah, it took a lot of inner work. I was also in the jungle working there, and it took a lot of inner work. And I started to see the plants more as this living archive that contains a lot of information. And what they also say during ceremonial work is that when you have, yeah, your intuition sharpens. So when you have an insight, yeah, it is suggested advice for me then that you take action to it. So for me, it was how can I follow my heart more as an artist? And I think a few weeks later, I really wanted to apply for the art science master, because this is what I had in my heart for a long time. And yeah, I just applied in the middle of the night. I wrote a research plan. Yeah, this is the short version of the story. And I applied because I really wanted to investigate how can I visualize this connection with the plants that I felt so strongly. I hope it is a little bit coherent how I.
Wow, that is
yeah.
such a powerful story. The
Yeah.
the idea that your dreams came into it, and then also, of course, your background as an ethnobotanist. So you're getting this real crossing of knowledge and wisdom systems in the beginnings of your work.
Well, actually, I'm not like a trained ethnobotanist, but I do use ethnobotanist methods in my work as an artist. So I try to combine scientific methods with artistic methods. And but this came later on because I started to investigate how I can visualize my idea of my idea of this ritual use, spiritual use, and seeing plants as spirits. I really, after that, I think after that period, I really started seeing plants more as spirits because I also worked with them in my inner world, in the inner realm. And I think that was they gave me an opening in my mind, like a little door that opens to talk very, very deeply with my inner conscious. So they facilitated this communication with the spiritual world. It's hard to explain. It's a little bit abstract maybe, but this was for me a mind-blowing period which transformed my whole artistic life, personal life also.
Wow. Fazle, what about you?
Yes, I mean it's always lovely to listen to Farah as well, and I think in a way we also met in a time when Farah was kind of going through that process, and I also kind of I feel maybe somehow in sync, going through my own process as I was more deeply connecting with one particular spiritual a plant spirit, which is the snake plant, indeed, which you've mentioned before in my bio. And that is the plant which my nanny migrated with 50 years ago. And it was a very small branch which she had bought from an Afro-Surinamese woman on the market in Suriname, but which she had placed traditionally around her house, like many other people would do in Suriname, and as many other people would do for protection. And this particular plant, she's been gifting branches of this plant to her children and some of her grandchildren. Um, so this very act of passing it on um, became a very meaningful spiritual act in itself for me that opened a portal in many ways. There was a point that this plant died in my house once I had received it from my nanny. I was living in a squat at that time, and you know, the Netherlands gets very cold, and I was living in a big office building. So it was standing there in this cold building, and she died. But when I think I was ashamed of it for about a year or two. But just around the time when I met Farah, I think I also gathered somehow the confidence to tell my nanny, like, listen, this plant actually died. And she laughed and she was like, this plant doesn't die. She was like, here, this plant spirit keeps living on, you know, like, look at how it's growing. Look how many children might have branches of this very special plant. And she gifted me a new one, you know, just like that. And ever since then, of course, I think have become much more delicate around the care for this plant. One other thing that did happen though in that process is that some of these branches also again started dying out very early on when I received it for the second time. And then I shared this with my nanny again, and my nanny explained me that this indeed is a very fragile plant, you know, for the particular one that she has brought with her is a very fragile one, whereas it's known to be a plant that is generally very resilient. It grows kind of almost anywhere, if with a lot of sunlight, with very little sunlight. It's a very common plant also nowadays, I feel, in many parts of Europe. But she somehow explained that that there's a certain fragility and vulnerability to this plant, and that this plant also likes to be in the soil together with other plants. And this very wisdom also reminded me of the importance of community, right? And even though the plant spirit is still with me, right? She's sitting there in the back. There's the snake plant hanging next to some calabash from Tobago, at least, which was beautifully designed in Tobago. But yeah, this plant spirit brought me into many different directions. From, on the one hand, something that's being passed on from generation to generation, but also something that has been moving and migrating with us from lands to lands. And the history of how the snake plant has arrived into Suriname or into the Caribbean um, is also very layered, because it's a plant spirit which is indigenous to West Africa, East Africa, South Asia. And since we have, of course, people from all these different lands present within the Caribbean, within Suriname, it brings also together a lot of these different spiritual practices around this plant. Um, so the plant itself has become very much a symbol for me for community care, but also creolization. And yeah, it has become a portal for me to invite others in, to create with others, to nurture others in narrating their stories, narrating their personal stories through plant spirits, because I feel that plant spirits are present with all of us regardless of our histories in one way or another. But yeah, one of the ways I often like to formulate is, who are we when we narrate our stories to plant spirits? Um, so this is in a way who I am, I guess, when I narrate my story through the snake plant. And the snake plant then has guided me into many different directions, to connect more deeply with other plant spirits as well. But it has also indeed manifested in several communal artistic collaborations, which I've been working with Farah and Anima on as well, in a project called Fertile Grounds and Legacy and Seeds, and several other projects as well. But maybe we'll get back to that later.
Thanks. These are such beautiful stories, to be honest, that you wouldn't expect to maybe have been told. And I think we tend to think of plants in terms of agriculture or medicine or backyard gardening, but to hear you tell these stories of them as archives, as living forms of memorialization, but also coming through dreams and coming as part of spiritual practices, I think is so profound. Anima, you had started off telling us about henna and being guided by the henna plant. Maybe you can tell us a little bit, just to begin, about how you came to start working with plants.
Yeah. Actually, this whole journey consciously started a little bit around 2020, so 5 years or so. Not too long, actually. But before that, somehow henna has always been around, but I didn't really see it or listen to it. So she came through the Hindi cinema, the Bollywood movies where the henna was put. I grew up in a part of the Netherlands, which is dominant white. It's not a big city, so was the only brown girl in school. Even though my father is white, you're still seen as, let's say, a person of color. So I saw her through Bollywood movies, which intrigued me because the images at that time were not that sharp. There were no 4K images or things like that. They were all illegal copies coming to the Netherlands. And then at least we had some sense of Indian cinema then here through those copies. So I could see people do something on the skin, but was not exactly clear what. So I asked my mother, what is this? And then she said, that's Mehndi. When my cousins got married in the family through Hindu rituals, there was they also wanted to have Mehndi, but the Mehndi was not available here as much. So instead of the Mehndi, nail polish was used to decorate. And so in the mind, I think the Mehndi was there, but physically it wasn't there yet. So I started to search actually also for the Mehndi, like, okay, where could it be? We went to the city of Rotterdam. There was this Suriname Indian store, and they sold Mehndi cones. So those are the cones in which the Mehndi is mixed with some chemicals, which makes it durable for a very long time. You can use it anytime, anywhere. While with fresh henna, it actually is, the color comes only for a few days, and then the paste itself is not as powerful anymore in terms of color. So I had to mix and figure out how this Mehndi would work. Still, I had no clue it was kind of a plant or something. It smelled earthy a little bit, but it was the cone. Then some of the shop owners said, okay, this is also henna. And then I got a little, how do you say, a little bag of henna powder. So then somehow I thought, okay, that must be some kind of leaves or something. I don't know yet either. By that time, we also had some access to the internet. And then I could Google, like, what's this henna? And I saw it was a plant. It's like, oh, so you were there somehow through the movies in our imaginary, but also through memory, because the family members wanted to have the Mehndi for their bridal. But now she's actually here in the form of a powder. And how can I actually use her? So started to experiment, because at that time creating a henna paste which gives you a beautiful dark color was very secretive, so nobody would tell you what actually the paste was about. So I had to figure it out a bit on my own. Now you can find it anywhere on the internet, so luckily you can make your own paste. So I started to experiment with lemon juice, but also with other kind of liquids that are a little bit sour. How can I make this paste? Well, eventually I got it, and then I started to create designs on the body. And then people ask me, Anima, how much do you charge for a bridal? I never thought of doing something like that. So it's like, oh, I can make a business out of it. So that's how I started actually as a Mehndi artist, also in the bridal scene. And what I noticed is you can do a lot of creativity and use it as a form of decoration for the bodies, and you can copy all kind of beautiful patterns and put it in the Mehndi. Now you can also see, it's a very kind of detailed and intricate art form that it has become, with much details and from different regions, different kind of designs that are there. But still, the Mehndi is also used as a material. And I started wondering, like, what would happen if I get to know this material a little bit more? So instead of using it as a bridal Mehndi, which was also part of a journey of claiming your own culture in this dominant white environment and being happy to share that culture and the rituals of Mehndi with different kind of families, which is a very powerful connection in itself. I also started to think about, but what actually does Mehndi mean to me, and what does it actually say? So I started to realize, like, maybe I need to do less and listen more. And listening happened actually by observing, like, what is the Mehndi? How does she actually feel? What is happening when I'm putting her on my skin? And how come that I'm not consciously saying, okay, now you get into my skin, become this beautiful design, skin do absorb the Mehndi, and I want it to be beautiful. No, those are other knowledges at work. So I started to connect more with the spirituality of the plant itself. And when I got into that kind of zone and thinking about other knowledges, thinking about epistemic justice, it was a whole different story. It was a whole different world. It's like, oh wow, I can think with Mehndi. I can think through Mehndi, and I don't need to think with my brain all the time. So then I realized, like, actually Henna is learning me and teaching me a lot. She has been there for almost all of my life. I didn't realize it earlier, but now I'm seeing actually more and more of what she means also here in the Netherlands in this context. So maybe also an interesting fact, in this day, I still haven't seen a plant of Mehndi alive. I never have seen her. So that is still a journey to come. I searched for her in Suriname, but somehow we missed each other. She's not revealing herself yet, but I'm sure it will come one day. So that's how I also listen, to Farah and to Fazle in how plants are also living and how they can also live in community, how you can listen to them. I'm really waiting for this journey that when I have the Mehndi plant herself, how we can understand each other even more. The only thing I know is that she grows in very warm areas and regions and needs a lot of sun. Well, that's not here. And with the art collective of CTRL+ALT, there was one person who tried to also grow the seeds, but it was in the times of the pandemic, so I could never see it. I only saw a picture that they were growing a little bit, but then they had to move out of the house, and the seeds needed a lot of care and warmth and lights. So there was a very special installation for them to grow, but that couldn't last. So that is still a story to come and to develop. I think, yeah.
These stories are so emotional and intergenerational, and also I speak to journeys, that your work with plants has also been part of life journeys, just, not necessarily artistic journeys, but your own lives unfolding, maybe even in unexpected ways as well. And that's so powerful. I want to just move us a little bit to talking, if you could tell us, because I have the three of you here, and each of you is doing really exciting work, which I hope that you will talk to us, show us a little bit if possible, and talk to us a little bit about. But before we go to that, the three of you work together. And I think collaborative work is also really rich and brings something else. Can we talk a little bit before we see some of the work that you've been doing individually? Can we talk about the fact that the three of you are a collective that works with others and other collectives as well? What have been some of your collaborations?
Maybe Fazle can elaborate.
Okay, sure, I will. Yeah, so I mean, in many different projects we have been involved, right? Like, so currently we are part altogether of a collective control alt ecology, in which we are also exploring different questions, but also educating ourselves and supporting one another as well in our individual journeys. Um, so I think, of course, largely speaking, we have a lot of a lot of shared cultural legacy, living in between these different lands, and relating to all these different plant spirits. Um, but one of the first moments that I started working with Farah was on a performance ritual called Anushtan, in which I'm mostly doing a whirling dance, but also some other dance traditions appear, such as bubbling. Caribbean bubbling music is kind of a shape of it is appearing in that work. But in that particular work, I was interested, fascinated already to work with henna and mehndi and incense. And actually, interestingly enough, it was quite early in my career as an artist in the Netherlands. And several places had rejected my idea or our idea as well on multiple levels. First of all, they rejected it because it was spiritual and they didn't find that that belongs to artistic, which is a complete opposite from where we find ourselves today, right? Within the art sector, at least in the Netherlands, you find so many artists working on spirituality and acknowledging that this basically informs each other, maybe even is the same dimension to begin with. um but yeah, the incense making and the henna were particular elements that were being considered as hostile to the space. People were afraid it was going to get dirty. The incense is something that could trigger the smoke alarm. So it required a lot from myself as well to find the people who would support me either way, in engaging with such elements in my artistic and ritualistic practices as well. And Farah was really one of the first people with whom I started creating incense and gathering different spices, which maybe Farah can also talk a little bit more about later.
Yeah.
Spices that are also connected to our colonial histories. Eventually, later on, we also got to develop that more for another work, which I think offered a bit more space to narrate personal histories again. But also henna was already very present. I think I knew Anima vaguely at that time, but I also remember very clearly that Anima came to that performance and she wasn't, because in that ritual people were requested to place henna powder from one bowl into another bowl, which then during the performance ritual was being mixed into a paste with water by Devi Kachotu, maybe also familiar to some of you. I mean, definitely to those in the Netherlands, but also a dear sister of mine. And then that henna paste was being handed out to each and single audience member on their hands. So it's this like the tension, right, between what is comfortable and what is very uncomfortable in the space, both for the audience that is present there and for the layeredness of the audience that is present there, because some people of the audience are people who I'm actively in community with, um, but also the theater itself. So I think what it on many levels offered to me, there were also plant spirits for resistance and for questioning and claiming space. They helped us to claim space, and yeah, later on this developed more into different collaborations. So yeah, Anima and me, of course, it was one of the first messages I received from Anima, like she loved the performance, of course, but she was also she was also very much in love with the fact that henna was being used in that space in theater, which I think she can elaborate a little bit more on that herself. But it is very uncommon, right? It is very uncommon here in theater and museum world. There's all these massive restrictions. Also, it shows again how colonial mechanisms have created this deep divide between art, spirituality, and culture, and how spaces have come to develop all these rigid ideas of then what is permitted into a space and what is not. Um, and considering that my artistic practice and my spiritual practice are one, I require space for these elements. I can't do my rituals without my incense. I can't do my rituals without the presence of these different plant spirits. um But yeah, it's clearly the multisensorial aspect of it as well, because that I think is the deep ancestral technology that sits within that, within the engagement of plant spirits. It opens up different portals within us. It requires you to feel more deeply and not just to see and observe, something that happens so much, I feel, in theater and museum spaces. Everything gets objectified, even if we want it or not. Everything gets objectified because the visual has become so dominant. And by bringing all these other layers in, I think we're opening up the sensorium in many ways that will make people feel uncomfortable. It will reallocate the relationship between the different senses within the space. It will invite you to question what it means to you to engage in ritual, something that a lot of people are also very uncomfortable with. Um, but I think for me, what happens in those kinds of spaces, and also using these kinds of plant spirits in collaboration, is that we find recognition. We find recognition in one another, and I think that is also why we continue to work with many different plant spirits, and why we keep being fascinated by each other uh, at the different questions that we ask. So yeah, like we've arrived to so many plant spirits, but yeah, Anima and Farah can tell a little bit more about that.
I mean,
Well, I
plants
can,
brought me to
if
you all as well,
oh, yeah.
in a way. In fact, plants did brought me to you all, the botanical. So continues to connect us. Farah,
Yeah, I can try to share a photo.
yeah, please.
I just found it on my laptop. Let me see. I've never shared anything on Zoom, so it's new for me. Oh yeah, here it is. Share. Oh, okay. Share. Okay. Can you see it now or no? Oh no, I have to click share, of course.
Yeah, we can
Yeah.
see
Okay, share.
just the part of
Yes.
the.
Do
Yeah.
you see the incense? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So this is the incense that we created for the Hindostani decolonizing ritual that Fazle was just elaborating about, and there were different stages in the performance ritual, and for every stage we try to create a different scentscape. And the herbs that we used were based on the colonial spice roots. So for example, there was oh, no, I don't know, cloves, cloves in it, and cinnamon. And because I've also worked with the ceremonial side with plant medicine, I learned via the shamans that they, when they are in the European continent, they also use in the medicine recipe, they also incorporate the plant spirits of Europe. So they make a recipe which contains plant medicine spirits from South America, but because they are working in Europe, they also want to invite the plant spirits of the European continent. So in this incense, the cones and the sticks that you can see, for example, lavender is mixed with cinnamon and clove, which is, and the black what you see is Indian charcoal from India. So in this way, I try to connect the continents in a symbolic and spiritual way. Yeah. Oh, and yeah, well, how can I say? Yeah, the incense was distributed by Devika, the beautiful goddess dancer, and Fazle during the performance. So the audience would walk in and already smell the the incense. Yeah.
So that's so important. Just
Yeah.
before we go over to you, Anima, when I had my first exhibit, the Botanical Afterlife of Indenture in June, one of the things that Melanie Archer, who is the curator, we talked about a lot, but we weren't able to incorporate it, but was to bring in the sense of these plants, because we understood that how we engage them is not just visually, but not just through taste, but often through smell as well. You know, that there's something that the smell carries, its own stories, its own memories, its own ways of provoking, you know, a very different kind of feeling as well. And so what you're doing here is almost like something that we dreamed of doing, which you were doing actually. And so are these images from that particular performance?
Yes. Well, I'm a little bit improvising. I just found this beautiful image of Devika and Fazle dancing and embodying, if I say it correctly, the embodiment of the colonial history and how it's felt in their bodies. It was quite intense to witness, actually. It was beautiful, yeah. But that's a performance that's always in the moment and in that time and space that interesting things start happening with all the senses.
Yeah, and I can also still feel that performance, because it was the first performance I witnessed from all of you as a collective as well. And since I also have a lot of experience in the Indian dance scene, also in the Netherlands, specifically Indian classical dance, your performance also showed me how spirituality and rituals can be reclaimed differently. And that started with the welcoming with the big henna bowls. And I was immediately like, who's this person who likes henna just as much? What is it? Oh, I love it. I still have a picture which I cannot show you now, but it's a beautiful picture of this henna bowl in the theater with the peacock feather in it. And the moment we entered the space, the theater, the space, it was totally transformed. It was something really different than I was used to from that specific theater as well. And you can see it here also in the images. And it was like, oh, but these are artists who have the same histories of indentured laborship like I do, but who express it in such a very different manner than I could do through the Indian dance of Kathak, that it inspired me so much that I was like, I need to be with these people, with these beautiful beings. Actually, you can't get rid of me anymore.
Really beautiful.
Yay.
And so, Anima, you're gesturing also a little bit to your background as a dancer. And so you've come in now, you've met them, Fazle and Farah. And how does this collaboration, this collaborative relationship unfold? You as a dancer, you as an artist, visual artist, and then also the henna work, and all sort of being connected by plants. How does that unfold?
I think it unfolded a lot by connecting with each other on a personal level, but also through humor, also through the spirituality that we all seek as well. And for me, it was also I was in a phase where I didn't know about decoloniality. I only knew like, okay, I need to claim space, and I'm doing that, and I'm doing that for me and for my people. And it was actually through Anustan and conversations also with Fazle that I got to know more about decoloniality through art, not through the academic or anything. So we started, I started going or taking your classes, right, Fazle? And in those classes, Fazle also asked us to connect our heart and our hara, which is the area around our navel. And that was a very different kind of movement, which showed me how your body can also experience spirituality through the repetition of that movement and come in some kind of also trance. And I experienced a similar kind of trance spirituality within Kathak as well, by constantly repeating the rhythms of the dance through the gungrus and only repeating it, dancing it for 2 hours, only the same kind of rhythm, just to get it in my body, but also to be somewhere else. Also with turning the chakras. In Kathak, you have also a lot of chakras. So I felt some connections also with the movements that Fazle was teaching me, although they were very, very different. So that also meant for me that there is something more than just the movement as a choreography, right? Or the movement as it is taught to you. And then, well, the pandemic happened, but well, you can't suppress your expression and your feelings. You know, everybody needs to have some way of expressing themselves. And then Fazle came with this idea and asked me if I was interested as well in shooting a short movie called Umat, which we thought at the time meant emotional overflow, but after 2 years, we came to know that it actually means nothing. We just thought it was Hindi or Urdu. But we just made it up and have this beautiful new word now in the world, which is, yeah, very much connected to decolonizing rituals. And through conversations and performing, also with the gungrus on a boat, which connects also to, you know, the projects that you do, Gabrielle. Yeah, that showed me also how I can use, not use, but for lack of a better word, let's say use Kathak also more in relation to histories of indentured laborship. So it was also a seed that was planted within me, which sprouted 2 years later in another collective called Stories of Kathak, where we dance through the language of Kathak stories of indentured laborship, or give expression to or an homage to our ancestors or feminist mothers, aunties. So that's how Fazle and I also got connected. And through Fazle's work and also collaborations with Farah, I also got to know Farah more than only the person who was behind the henna at Anustan. And then we also had a lot of conversations about plants and plant spirits, because to me, Farah was like, you know, the person with so much more knowledge about how to have plants also in your art practice, how to listen to the plants. And yeah, it really helped me also relating differently to Henna as well. And that's what Farah also told me when she saw an exhibition also curated by Devika Chotu, A Sense of Brown, where we were also all exhibited. Yeah, that you saw also, Farah, a different side of me in how to yeah, let's say exhibit henna art, but then more in a plant spiritual way.
Yeah, I think for me, if I can tap into that, yeah, for me it was what I saw in it a really a turning point on how you yeah, how you were working with henna in a visual art way, which also invited an audience. So it was a collective work, which you, yeah, I thought it was beautiful how you guided the audience on the welcoming event, the opening event, and that exactly how you did it in the beginning of this seminar with a guided meditation and inviting the audience to feel the henna and smell the henna and work with it. And in the course of, I don't know how long the exhibit was, but a lot of people felt invited. And I think that's beautiful that without your presence, your visual work with henna, yeah, expanded and became a bigger work because a lot of people contributed to the canvas where you invited other people to work with her. So I thought it was quite a turning point in what you did earlier. So yeah, very inspiring. It was inspiring to work with all of you in this exhibit because, and I never realized that this exhibit only at the opening speech I realized that it was an important exhibit because when you're so into making the artistic work and the process, you don't realize that this for the Netherlands, it was quite an important point that all these artists of Surinamese-Hindostani descent came together and make an exhibit at a well-known artistic place in Netherlands. And this was a turning point in Dutch history because there was not something like that before, and I only realized it at the welcoming speech of someone from the municipality who said that this was an important moment. And I thought, oh, that's true. There hasn't been an exhibit like that. So
I didn't realize that either.
I didn't realize it also because I just love working with you.
Yeah, and at the same time, the realization was like, really, it did not. Oh my God, really? It was what, like 2023 or something? I don't know. Only then. Well, after I think maybe even so many years that that it was, so powerfully represented our stories and histories. Yeah.
And in such an way that's drawing on indenture histories, but is also drawing on multi-ethnic histories, transnational journeys of plants, multiple migrations, so this idea that to do work that is post-indenture, somehow replicating purities of any kind is completely overturned in the kinds of collaborations and openness and participatory collective nature of the work that you all are doing as well. And I think that's really beautiful. I want to move us maybe to seeing a little bit of some of the work, but I also wanted to share an image which also can explain to our audience how I came to be asking you all some of these questions. So it's just one image. It is the image that was from the my recent exhibits. So I don't know if you can see this image here. Yes?
Yes, I can see it. Yeah.
And so this was really interesting because I had never seen, well, I have never seen henna or Mehndi used this way to actually commemorate, to show that plants are beautiful in the sense of that we typically understand that to be agricultural plants or for food or for nurturing or sustenance, but not themselves as um, as carrying a beauty in their very design that also challenges what has been decided for us as beauty. And so you have rice here and okra, and right on the wrist are peppers. And so the work that we produced, and this henna work, this is my daughter Zia, and this henna work is done by Risa Ragunana and Mohammed of Henna Trinidad, as part of a collaboration between us to allow people to see that that Mehndi can memorialize indenture histories in a way that can connect anybody to those histories, anybody across race, across sexual orientation, across age, across geography, to those histories, and evoke the memories that these plant journeys have for them also. And to think instead, for us particularly, I was particularly keen to move away from peacocks and elephants and things like that, and to have Caribbean people imagine that the landscapes around us, the things that nannies brought with and ajis brought with them, that those could be the ground from which we are creating these designs, rather than taking them from India or taking them from the internet or from books, literally around us in our market spaces, in our backyards, and so on. We could be creating these designs. And that really captured people. It was amazing. You know, we had, Risa did one design, because we combed the indenture archives, and there was one of a woman pounding rice with a really like a 2-foot tall mortar, and you know, she's got a massive pestle that she's pounding the rice. And we had put that into one of the henna designs, and I was amazed that people wanted that design of a woman pounding rice, of an Indian woman pounding rice. And they weren't necessarily Indian themselves, but they were so captured by this idea, perhaps images they had seen, memories they have, or just the beauty of it. And then pulling that out of history to carry it with them in the present. And so Mehndi and henna has all of these possibilities in it as well. So I think this kind of brought me to some of the connections, Anima, that we had began to speak about with regard to henna and Mehndi, but also embodiment, the importance of bodies, and what the spaces that they are in and the spaces that they go to, and what they bring with them and what they take with them as well through the engagement with plants. So just opening it up, we'd love to see some of your images and videos as we head towards. I do want to leave some time open for questions and conversation and contributions by others, but we definitely want to see the work. Farah, shall we start with you?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, okay, I will try it again. Let's see. Okay. Oh, okay. Do you see this? Okay. Oh yeah, I just found another picture of the incense distribution. So you see in this photo, you can see Devika distributing the cones, and this was in the beginning of the Anushthan, the decolonizing ritual. And here, this was more further into the performance, where Anima holds a self-made. Yeah, it was made out of different metal objects. Actually, it was an old little chandelier where I put the cones in. And yeah, she was dancing beautifully, and while she was dancing, and yeah, she was turning around the incense holder, the smoke distributed through the venue, and the audience was sitting around the center where they were dancing. So I just wanted to show a little bit about that. One of the works, the key works, what I made was, it's called The Holy Color of Turmeric. It's the Holy Color of Turmeric, the Sunlit Spice. That's the title of the work. And for this work, yeah, this really reminds me of my mother's cooking, actually. And I think this is what Fazle also elaborated on, this shared cultural heritage. And for me, the turmeric, yeah, it carries deep personal meaning. It has the sense of home for me, but also my nephew got married, and in this ceremony, the bride and the groom to be rubbed each other in the haldi ceremony with the turmeric, and this was at a time that I already was quite getting interested, and I realized that, and later I asked the groom and the bride, did they know what this ritual was about? And then I realized that a lot of these rituals, at least for them, was unknown. So they did the ritual, and all the actions were there, but they didn't really know the meaning of it. And that is for me also this disconnection that appears because of the colonial history, that we are, yeah, they didn't know why they were doing the ritual. Of course they enjoyed it, and it was fun with the family, and it was beautiful ritual. And this kind of really inspired me to started making a deeper research on this. So this is in the Glass House Gallery in Amsterdam, and I'm holding plastic plates, and on these plates are medicinal plants that I found in the Amstel Park. And this park is known as a botanical garden. And if you look at botanical gardens, most of them also have a colonial history, where plants are taken out of context without their spiritual meaning, their ritual meaning. So I started looking for plants in this Amstel Park, medicinal plants. And because I always try to combine the different continents together in a spiritual way, I combined the South Asian turmeric with the plants, the European plants. And for this, I made so here you can see the working space, which was also a gallery at that time. So people could come in and see me working with turmeric and the plants that so you can also see that outside there are a lot of, it was in the middle of this park, which was former botanical area. And one of the plants that I found there was the amber leaves from the amber plant. And it was really a great experience that when I rolled these leaves in my hands, I would smell the lemony scent of it. So I also started incorporating these leaves together with the turmeric. And with the turmeric, I created an emotion which has photo sensitive qualities. So here you can see me making the emotion. And I would go out for walks every day in the park. And this is what I call the field research, and try to see what plants come to me. So yeah, it's difficult. So what plants, because there's a lot of plants there, but what plant really comes to me, and that's how I came across the leaves of this amber plant, and it was quite an discovery, because even the director of the gallery didn't know about the whole intriguing history of this plant, that it was used by the North American indigenous people as a medicine. And she also didn't know that it smelled so good. So I also took an audience with me into the park, and I walked together with them and showed them all the things that I discovered. So here you see that I'm working with the turmeric and making the light sensitive emulsion. Oh yeah, this is the amber tree where I just spent a lot of time under this plant, really trying to sense the plant and getting to know it more. And yeah, I also, and because of all these people that were walking into the gallery, I learned a lot about it, because a woman told me a lot of history about this plant. So I also believe that when you are somewhere, the information comes to you, or the plant comes to you. And of course, I did also research by looking in archives and in books. Yeah. So these are
so rich. I mean, I'm sure our
Yeah.
audience is going to want to engage you on this work, Farah.
Sorry?
That it's so rich.
Yeah.
I'm sure our audience is going to want to engage you on this work.
Yeah. So this is how do you say? And after that, I was very happy that the turmeric started growing by myself. So this is the plant that I grew from the roots that I got here in the Hague market, which has a few tropical plant areas, and where I could buy the hardy. And of course, this is an ancient root. It's known in a lot of cultures, and in the Ayurvedic medicine, of course, and the Egyptians already used to work with it. But I was so happy that it also started growing. I could grow my own turmeric plants. And after the exhibition, it's kind of, I don't know, it passed on. So I don't know what's happened, but I also thought that was interesting that it stayed with me, but then after that it went on.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing that. I have so many questions, but I want to give us a chance to hear from Fazle and Anima. And I also want to open it up to our audience so we can hear, because there are artists who are also doing work, and and also spiritual people and just people. So we want to give us a chance for us all to engage. So far, we're going to come back and maybe give us a chance to see some of Fazle's work and Anima's work, and I think open it up.
Yeah, I can show maybe. Do you want to open it up now, or do you want to, or can I show just, supporting images? Okay, let's try it.
Part.
Can you see it?
Yes.
Okay, do you see it nicely? Or you see the whole PowerPoint with all the slides?
Whole PowerPoint.
Yeah, the whole thing.
There you go. You got it. If you click there, it's good. Yeah.
Here we are. Yeah, perfect. So this just shows a little bit of the journey that I had. On the right, the bridal Mehndi, how it kind of started using the Mehndi itself as a decorative art, but also in claiming cultures and spaces for ourselves. In the background, it's Mehndi or henna in all her forms, except the fresh leaf and twigs. So you see the powder, you see the dried leaves, the twigs, there are even some seeds somewhere. And then on the left, you see also how I use the imaginary of the henna, now also in digital art, also in reimagining the Indian gods, the Devis and the Devatas. And I started with the three Devi, which are Saraswati, Lakshmi, and Durga Kali. And this is my interpretation of Lakshmi, whose name is also Bhumi, and Bhumi means earth. So I started to think of what would Lakshmi look like if we reimagine her from a more eco-feminist perspective. And within that, what Henna taught me how to draw and how to think in compositions, this is how she came out. So those are three phases, from decoration to the material, but also the digital. And here is how I like henna most. Just fully bathing yourself into the Mehndi. Let it be messy, let it be dirty. Even if coloniality says it's ugly, henna loves you. And this is during a project with Fazle, where we facilitated a henna workshop of 5 hours, connecting different kinds of henna from Turkey, Morocco, India, Pakistan, all the powders, geographies in one paste. And on the left, you can also see how all the participants, and the canvas that Farah was talking about from Sense of Brown is now even layered more with different energies and geographies, also from different people from all over the world that were present that day and shared their henna stories and expressed themselves with henna. And then this is the last one I would like to show you as well. This is how the Mehndi and embodiment also come together. This image is also with my sisters, Ruby, Shavita, and Sheila. The four of us performed in a dance theater performance called CTRL+ALT Identity, in which dance and henna rituals are intertwined together. And here you can see the henna also on our skins in her different forms, as a color or as a paste. And I really love the boldness and the rawness in opposite of how actually, right? This henna here is often seen as something very intricate in the bridals. So that's a little bit of the images I can show you.
Yeah, I mean, it's just allowing the henna to just be on the skin without too much control as well. Thanks for sharing this, Anima. Again, I have so many questions. I'm just gonna give us a chance to hear from Fazle. Fazle, do you have any of the work that you'd like to share?
Yeah, I mean, as you've noticed, a lot of our work is very collaborative. So I feel that you've seen a lot of images of our works already.
Yeah.
Thank you for bringing them to the screen as well. I haven't prepared so well, but I want to show you one video of a project that has been moving and shifting, which was Fertile Ground. And so I won't be doing much talking, but I hope you can enjoy the video. Let me see, share screen. Uh, yeah, here it is. Is something playing already?
Yes.
Oh.
Yes.
friends that I've made here who I can talk to about my life in a meaningful way.
Bringing something that I want to create, so connectedness, togetherness, solidarity, care.
You, Fazle. You know, you all have given us just so much that's just so incredibly thoughtful and layered and profound. And it's been a real privilege to have this opportunity to be able to see your work. I do want to open it up to people. I'd like to hear what people's thoughts are. You know, you don't have to just ask questions. You can jump in with your feelings if you want to talk about your own work that you're doing, anything at all, just to give us a chance to hear from those who have been in the room, who've stayed in the room, anything at all. So I'm just opening it up. If you want to ask questions about the work, anything at all, please, everyone who's here, feel welcome to just jump in and tell us what your thoughts or your feelings are, anything you'd like to share.
I'll jump in if that's okay. I'm Yannick. Thank you so much for your... Hi, darling.
Hi, Yannick. Hi.
So nice to see you.
It's so lovely to see you. And thanks so much for putting this together, Gabrielle, and for bringing this team of artists to share their work. It's exquisite. I had questions for each of you, but I know the time, but I was curious about this idea of senses, because when Anima, you were speaking of coming into knowing and that sensibility around knowledge around of the henna, you were saying think a lot. And I thought that was very, like, you were thinking your way through this. And I was thinking, wow, that's curious that you chose a word that dwelled in the cerebral when everything else was so sensuous. So I was curious about where you all position the kind of the knowledge of sense, and how in your own work you rely on the idea of the sensorial. And you've answered it in some ways in what you've shared, but I was really curious about this level of how we come to know through feeling, or how we come to know through the sensorial, how you come to your practice through sensing the body in space, in time, but also the other senses that get piqued through your engagement with plant spirits. Because if we recognize, especially after you cut plants, their vibration continues, right? So I'm in a class with students and they were saying, so what happens when the plant, does the spirit die after you cut it, right? Does it, how do spirit continue to emanate through plants once they leave source, which would be maybe the roots and the soil and all of the things that are giving them nutrients? When they are now leaves, do they still emanate spirit? So that's actually two questions. The idea of how do we envision spirit when you have a dislodging or a removal of the actual plant from the very source of its livity, right? Which would be the soil or other things. And then how you as artists, as conduits, as you in each of your own ways as mediums, tap into the sensibility of senses. And we know that there are more than five, right? But the sensorial levels to engage with your work as artists, but also with plants as your medium. I hope those questions are clear. Yeah.
Wonderful.
And thanks
Thank
again.
you, Unique. I'm so glad we have you in the room.
Yeah, it's wonderful to be here.
It's an honor to have you here. It's an honor. I love just doing this. It's like a big gathering of beautiful people across oceans and lands. Um, but yeah, maybe if I try to shortly tap into this very, very beautifully formulated question, I mean, I feel that you are also giving a lot of tools to answer this question, because I think in one way we can speak of the body as the vessel that speaks to the sensorium, or that has a sensorium, right? um but and the very body itself is composed out of so many different plant minerals, and even our gut, right? The very our gut system, the food that we eat, the plant spirits that we take with us from a very young age, they shape our bodies and our whole sensorium, therefore, for the rest of our lives.
Mhm.
Having that understanding on the one hand of the body, also the body of course being composed of many things that have come before us, my parents, my great grandparents, and there is also something of as the collective body, and therefore something as the collective sensorium that comes about. I'm deeply convinced that when we come together, our sensorium, our collective sensorium gets activated, which is really very much a space for listening, sensing, feeling differently from when we are by ourselves on our own in a space. um, and then of course there is also absolutely for me the sensorium of other spirits, of other entities, of other beings, other non-human entities in the space. So as much as we have a sensorium as human beings, with our physical bodies, plants have also their own sensorium.
Mhm.
So it's constantly a coming together of different sensoriums, which I think offers the space for me to create, offers for me the space to imagine, to relate, um, but also to redefine in many ways what we are taught in terms of, like, I mean, when I say what we are taught, I actually am speaking of conventional education system, and indeed these conventional notions of the five senses. There are many different culture and cultural practices, including the many different cultural practices that we come from, that speak of the sensorium in many different ways. We have different words that describe the
Mhm.
senses. There are specific terms that we could use to describe the relationship between hearing and seeing, right?
Yeah.
Which is
Mhm.
often so separated, but then acknowledging that this is a space, a dimension of its own, I think is extremely meaningful. Um, So language on the one hand restricts us as well in my experience, but um yeah, engaging with different kinds of plant spirits. And maybe I feel that Anima maybe can speak also a little bit more about that, because henna, right, I think it's so it's much more visible, I would say, in comparison to many other plant spirits, of how that process in itself manifests. And it's also acknowledging within our sensorium that we are limited. um, we can't just rely on the sensorium of our own physical body. We require deeply the sensorium of other human beings and other entities. But yeah, I kind of feel I can speak a lot. I have definitely not answered all of your questions, but I feel that maybe the others could tap into some other dimensions of your beautiful questions. Maybe Anima, about maybe more specifically, of course, about henna and how it's been the minerals of henna, how it transforms.
Thank you.
Yes. Well, thank you for your beautiful question, and also very reflective question, because for me, I always, since it's only since around 5 years that I'm trying to reconnect and rethink and think through different sensoriums, I sometimes feel that it still feels a little bit like a beginning phase of a journey. So because of what Fazle also mentioned, right? How we are taught to think, how we are taught to be. And one of the things that Henna taught me, and where I feel, in terms of visibility, but also a direct action, is how to think differently about henna, is that I have created a ritual which is partly storytelling and partly experiencing henna in a different way. And within that ritual, I also share with people that the henna that they're going to put on their hand grew in the countries of our ancestors. So the African continent, the Asian continent, and everything that's in between. And I only recently, like maybe 1.5 years back or so, came to know that it also grows in Suriname. So probably also a lot of different places in the Caribbean as well. So she grew on the lands of our ancestors, and she takes the minerals of that land. And the moment that we connect with henna and she connects with our flesh takes back the minerals of the countries of our ancestors. And it's a very, I think, emotional and sensitive, sensorial experience to look at that process happening as well. Feeling how that henna is coming onto your skin, how she also cools your skin a little bit down, how she gets her color into your skin. Your skin is saying, the pores open, like, okay, come in the different layers that she's able to come into your skin because of the layers that we have, how she becomes more dark hair than, for instance, hair. And that we are going to carry those minerals of the land through the henna of our ancestors, of henna as an ancestor, made me realize that it made me feel different timelines as well. So the timelines also of, I say henna time, and which is very different than the colonial clock. So she won't work for me on my skin from 9 to 5, but she will stay here and she and my skin, they will decide whether to go or not. And the moment I tell that story also to different audiences who are also seeing henna more as a decorative plant or substance, some people don't even know, like I did in the beginning, that it was a plant, that it's a plant. So by realizing that, feeling it all at the same time, it opens up more, I think, the ability also to sense, and that's and feel and understand differently. And that's a bit of a journey that I'm going through.
May I add just one element
Yeah.
also about the henna, which I myself find fascinating, right? The different stages of henna and how it interacts with the skin and with different skins, right? Because
Yeah.
there are a lot of cultural understandings, cultural specific understandings of what that means when the henna is darker or when it's lighter, when it stays with you for a longer period of time. But of course, the beauty in that process, and also how Anima has been engaging with it and inviting us in a beautiful way, is to really observe and sit with that, right? And sharing those kinds of stories as well with one another. um because indeed for some, the henna, it's a bit lighter when you put it, like, it looks very dark, of course, the paste, but it's actually a bit lighter first when you remove it from the skin, but then it grows
Yeah.
in its color tone over the days. And also the way in which you would invite particular oils, so other plant spirits, onto your skin would support that process of becoming darker. And the very fact that generally the darker the henna, the better it is, I think is also a very beautiful political statement in itself, right? Which sits in our cultures, in cultures that
Yeah.
otherwise often have been so much damaged as well by colonialism, racism, and colorism, and to kind of see that, but there is actually this presence. We like it when it's darker on the skin. And these kinds of processes, I think, indeed invite us very deeply into broadening our sensorium, the
Yeah,
understanding.
broadening our sensorium and also learning to honor our bodies more.
Mhm.
Farah, anything you'd like to add to this? And after you, we have Arnaldo, who's asked a couple of questions. And then we have to
yeah, if I think about the henna, one of the most beautiful feedback that I got from one of the audience members was that she was a few days after the decolonizing ritual that we performed together, she was taking a shower and she still saw the henna on her hand. And so she took a picture of that, and that immediately reminded her and took her back in time to this decolonizing ritual. And I thought it was amazing that the plant, the henna, has this time traveling abilities. And this is something that I noticed also in the use of incense, that through the scent and also through the henna, the plant has this time traveling abilities to take you to a different memory and a different world. I don't know if I'm too abstract, but yeah, it immediately reminded her, and then she went into the experience again. So yeah, it takes a lot of different layers for me, different senses. And if I talk about the incense rituals that we did with a group of people, we would smell incense and different other herbs. And there's also a scientific explanation, of course, because there's receptors in our nose that are connected to certain areas in our brain, but they don't know exactly what, but that it triggers memories. And I had a lot of people that went into this whole dream kind of experiences, and and said, yeah, after I really consciously, we sat together and consciously were smelling, because we all smell, I mean, most of the people smell, but to really consciously smell and feel the henna, that's a different, layer, different level. And that made these participants go into, deep memories and time, that's when I experienced the plants as a time traveling device. Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
I'm moving us to wrap, everyone. So thanks, Yanni. That was
Thank you.
yeah, that was such a generative question to ask. Analdo, you've asked some questions in the chat, and also you're free to come on. And Analdo's a photographer, but has also been part of making art and film, if I'm correct, Analdo, with plants as well. So the last time I think we met, you were creating a collaborative work around plants also. And so Analdo, just inviting you in to share. And then if there's anyone else that wants to say anything after Analdo, we'll just open the space for you and then circle back to you all to close.
Thank you, Gabby. Thank you so much. And also thank you, Fazle, Anima, and Farah for sharing your work. It's been a remarkable past 2 hours. And I'm not just blowing smoke in your direction. I have a lot of things on my mind. I did write some stuff in the chat. And one of these things I feel is probably going to come a bit left field. But I'm interested in, because you've all spoken to it in different ways, even like Fazle talking about that relationship with this plant that died, and like asking his relative, like, can I, so I'm interested in general about, as you're developing your work, how you're navigating your own relationships with your elders. And I asked that in part, I want to say very laymanly from like my position is that, we're taught, I think, balance things with a grain of salt, respecting of elders, and that, they bring so many beautiful things into our lives. But in my own experience as well, I'm just like, elders can also lie because they're people. They can also like take us. So I'm kind of interested. I like to say that because you see, I already brought a laugh. It's just like, elders are people and they do things because they're people. And so I'm interested as your work, and again, like one of those things I think Anima said about like, this plant, as you're using henna, it's this physical sensual connection with the plant that also has its place with not just diaspora but with ancestry, is how in your own ways, as you're developing the work, you're negotiating those kind of relationship with ancestors that can be positive but also can be like, yeah, I told my mom I'm making this piece of art, but she's like, what are you really doing with that?
Yeah. Thanks, Anal. That's a really important question. And in fact, one of the questions that we had discussed but didn't get to was, how do plants enable an intergenerational navigation? So it's so great that you asked that. And before I go to you all to answer, and also just to close, just is there anybody that just wants to say anything at this moment at all? Floor is open for a few moments. Anybody just wants to say hello? Anybody wants to?
Hello.
Hello.
Hey.
Hi, this is Erika Jelani.
Hi, Erika.
PhD student from UWI. I've gone to your session. Very interesting. What I like about it is the way how, the dyeing of the fabric, and the way how the movements and flow of the performance were. And my scholarship also looking at the use of plants and herbs in ritual practice amongst Afro-Caribbean spiritual traditions. So that is one of the reasons why I log on.
Nice.
And, you know, my supervisor, Dr. Hume, you know, she always encouraged me to listen in and to pay attention to what's going on around in different forums. So I just want to say I enjoyed the presentation, very informative, but also to ask one if there's ways that you can, if there are courses or ways that you can learn more or about traditional healing. I like the idea of the henna and the artistry, the different designs and so on. And, you know, the way how knowledge is transferred from space to space, from island to island, from jurisdiction to jurisdiction, across geographical boundaries. And how even though we are so far apart, you know, the ideas and practices are similar. So that is what I would say in terms, that's my contribution to what y'all did this evening. Thanks.
Great to hear from you from Cave Hill and
Yeah,
about
Rita Jelani.
and that and about your research also, which sounds really fascinating. And there, just to say as well, there's conversations about the use of botanicals in the work of artists like Zeneca Singh from South Africa and so on in previous conversations like this that I've been doing around the botanical afterlife of indenture. So feel free to go to the IGDS YouTube page, IGDS St. Augustine YouTube page to see some of those conversations and to hear from some of the other artists also. Anyone else in the room would just like to say hello, tell us about your work, say anything about the session before we close? Okay, well, I'm going to hand over to you all. You have a number of comments in the chat as well that you could take a look at, and Arnaldo's question also. So handing over to you all to close.
Yeah, oh no, what is
No, please go.
Yeah, I see in the chat that Arnaldo James asked Farah, what is your intention for this art residency and what changed occurred along the way? This residency was for me intended to turn the gallery space into an open artistic laboratory. And during the course of the exhibit, I would work and people would come in. And it was quite amazing that through all the conversations with the people, I could do a lot of empirical research. So a lot of people shared their own stories. Oh, can you see it? So I would write a little fragments of their stories on the glass wall. You can see me writing here. And through the course of this exhibit, I got to know the turmeric and other medicinal plants from the park around. So much more. So it really connected me more with the plant. And at the end of the exhibit, I made a lot of different prints, as you can see. So it really connected me more through the turmeric, also through the stories of all the people that were sharing. Some people were making medicine, some were making drinks. A woman came in and shared her own haldi wedding story. It was just a great experience, which I never thought that this would happen in such an open space. So I wrote down all these stories. So that was part of my research. I hope I answered your question.
You did, and also you have exquisite handwriting.
Thank you.
Anima,
Thank you.
Fazle, just as we wrap.
Yeah, is it okay? I just go and build on this because I love seeing this as well. I think this is also for me a lot of the answer through storytelling, and by really engaging with others. A lot of the research and deeper understanding develops. So when you ask this question in relationship to our elders, I think they are part of that artistic research, and they are not the end of that artistic research, right? Often I think they maybe appear somewhere in the process. Sometimes, like the specific snake plant for me, of course, really started with my nanny narrating a bit of her story, but she does not attach a particular spiritual meaning to it. I mean, I feel that her practice of passing it on is a very spiritual one, but I'm also always very aware of the fact that my elders or my family, they sit within a particular cosmology. They sit within very particular spiritual traditions, and those are very, very meaningful. But differently from my own family, I um I do not sit within only one cosmology. And I honestly also feel my perspective is that they have also been sitting with and surrounded by many different cosmologies, but often feel that they have to choose, right, in this life. So my family comes from a particular Islamic upbringing, a particular reformist Islamic upbringing, but Hindu cosmology is omnipresent around us. Afro-Surinamese, different African-rooted spiritual traditions are omnipresent as well. So when I narrate these stories, for example, around the snake plant with my grandmother, she is not connecting it deeply into particular meaning. But once I started indeed also having conversations with the people around me, doing more research, inviting other people to connect with this plant spirit or narrate their stories through this specific plant spirit, I learned a lot. I learned, for example, that the specific snake plant is both connected to or is associated with Oya, with the female Orisha of storms. And in Nigeria, it's also connected with Ogun, the Orisha of war, and is also more particularly used in rituals to remove the evil eye. So such engagements with the world around us, and not just restricting us ourselves through our bloodline ancestry, is something that has also been very important to me. And a bit earlier on as well in my own practice, I've always been inviting people to expand on this very notion of ancestry. Yes, there is something sacred to the bloodline ancestry, but there is also something very meaningful and sacred to the non-bloodline ancestries, thinking of plant ancestors, thinking of other communities and people that have shaped the realities around us, that have shaped our cultural practices. And we Anima referred to, of course, the henna, and it's present also throughout so many different parts of the world. Farah didn't speak so much about the indigo plant, which she's also been working with, but it's also another big example of a plant spirit that is used in different ritualistic practices, both in the Afro-Surinamese community, considered as an element to protect ourselves, but something that is very common in our Indo-Surinamese community as well, to wash babies in indigo blue water, for example. And how then these kinds of processes are always ongoing. So meaning and the spiritual power and the physical effect, the multisensorial effects of these plant spirits are not rigid and fixed. They move, shapeshift, and transform across space and time. And that's something, that's how I relate to it, and how I also hold conversations with my elders very close to me, but also move into the world in my own way.
Anima, you close.
Yes. Yeah, so I think also in everything what Fazle and Farah also shared, I think one of the questions we as a collective in Control-Alt Ecology also had or have, its ongoing question and process, is how to relate to this part of Earth with our bodies who have this history of indentured laborship and are also used to the minerals, the vegetables, the fruits, the food of different regions of Suriname and before that of India. And because sometimes that feels also very distant from literally the earth here. And we posed that question also to Vandana Shiva. And she answered with, but your ancestors are already here. And that was kind of eye-opening for like, oh yes, of course. And we approached this question in a very kind of linear timeline, while actually the different cosmologies that Fazle was also talking about all exist with, through, and in between each other as well. So seeing the trees, the waters, the greens here as well, and considering them ancestors became something very different in terms of how to relate to this land, because suddenly you feel also kind of a warmer relationship towards Earth, looking beyond the coloniality that you were growing up in. For me personally, there are two families with very different culture, because I have my white family and I have my Suriname Indian family, who I mostly grew up with, also with Hindu religion. And while this part of the family kind of understands also the choice of, and the necessity, I don't think it's a choice, I can't live without it, of being an artist and a performer and all that. And this side of the family doesn't see that spirituality either. So it's like, why didn't you become a doctor or a partner in some kind of business? And now I'm thinking, actually, when we're talking about the sensorium and all the skills and capabilities that our bodies have, is like, doctor wouldn't have been a very completely wrong choice. I would like to know about the nose and how it connects to memories more. Maybe in that sense, doctors are more closely related to our flesh as well. Sometimes it's a way of re-relating to my elders, and then especially my mother, by asking questions about food and how the food also grows here, or how she has her vegetable garden, which is also similar to my white family, which my grandmother there also had a vegetable garden. So how are those ancestors then also connected with each other, those different plants? And how can I see that in a more lovable way than how I was taught in categories like, this is the white family and this is the brown family. But how can we move beyond that through the lessons of plant spirits? And my mother relates to it very differently. My grandmother also relates to it a bit differently, but both are always creating vegetable gardens or kitchen gardens, and searching for the Suriname Indian foods. Even now, this day, through WhatsApp, I get through my mother greenhouse vegetables which are on sale, on promotion, and you can get it directly from the greenhouses and other Suriname Indian people who grow those vegetables there as well. Instead of going to a supermarket, which is a different conversation, but I think in terms of relating to that land and ancestry and how to talk with it through elders, I think through food, it helps. Through henna, I tried to put some beautiful design on my mother's hand, but she's used to working so hard she can't sit still. I have to run after her and put the Mehndi. But yeah, so that's a different story, but through food it helps. So this is how you try to navigate and connect, and also, you know, have those elderly connections and knowledges coming to you. And on the other hand, well, there are many different kind of other bubbles that we can connect to together, like CTRL+ALT ecology, but also like this beautiful for you lunch seminar, for us dinner time seminar.
So, well, thank you all. We have to close, but you've given, sorry, you want to say something, Farah?
Yeah, I just want to show the one picture of the indigo ritual. Sorry. So this is the blue water that originates from the indigo vera plant. And it's a blue washing. We were washed in blue water as babies, Fazle and me, a lot of Hindustani people. And we opened up this ritual for the public. And one of the funny things that happened, that I asked my parents, why didn't you participate? Because they were there also. And because the audience, first Fazle and me, took part in the washing ritual, and then we opened it up to the rest of the audience, and they made up their own method. We didn't really instruct them. And one of the funny things my parents said, she said, my mother, because she didn't participate, and then later I asked her, she said, yes, Farah, we already know this, all these rituals. My father was like, yeah, we did it, so we know it. I think it's important for the other people to get to know the ritual and the spirituality. So I thought it was kind of funny that my parents are like, oh yeah, we know it. So I wanted to end with this funny anecdote.
Actually. I want to thank you all because I've learned so much. Like, you made me think so many, to think about plant ancestors, plant spirits, the multifaceted work that you all are doing, the sensory, the body, the spiritual, and it's really, you've given me so much to grow from in terms of hearing your work. And so I really want to thank you for your generosity, for sharing your work, and for the work that you're doing, which is just, it's so profound. And, trying to be in conversation with those who are producing, who are memorializing indenture histories in ways that are personal and also beautiful, difficult sometimes, collective, emotional. So these conversations are a journey for me to connect with those who are on those journeys and to see how the afterlife of indenture is being given meaning in such a widely dispersed range of ways, and then particularly the botanical afterlife of indenture. And so the work that you all are doing, to the work of memory, ancestor memory, plant ancestor memory, and community building along with it is really beautiful. So I want to thank you all for this time. Thank you all for sharing. let our audience know that if you missed the beginning or you have to leave for the end, or if there's anybody else that would like to see this, this conversation will be up on the IGDS YouTube channel, on the playlist, Post-Indenture Feminisms. And that is an attempt by us in the Caribbean to be a source of knowledge that people can come to us to see the kinds of global conversations that are taking place, and to be able to learn from them. And the fact that we do it this way is also meant to be very accessible to students, accessible to those who may not know anything about art at all, but can get to hear from those that are producing work and to hear about their backgrounds and their stories. And so I thank our audience for staying with us, for coming in, for being here, for being a part. I thank the questions that we got, and just wish you all well as we continue on our journeys. So thank you all very much. Thanks to our audience, and goodbye, everyone.
Thank you all. Just a little shout out also to Gabriella, right? I mean, not a little, a very big one. Thank you so much for bringing us together and for hosting this space. And we're looking very much forward for having you with us in the Netherlands very soon. So for those who are in the Netherlands, please save the date, 22nd of November. And maybe Anima can share also a little bit about it. Yeah, you're muted.
Okay, yes. So the 22nd of November, Gabrielle is in the Netherlands and will share her knowledges also more about the Trinidad and Tobago Carnival, Juve, as I learned from you, and the Maas, so also the character that she developed for this year. All together with soca and chutney music, being loud in the Amara Theater building. Let's come together and continue the conversations and building the communities that we are doing now. So very much looking forward to receiving you and meeting you in person.
That's right. Thanks, everybody, for joining. And we'll see you next conversation. And of course, please, everyone who's here, please feel free to reach out to me in case you want to suggest any others who you think it would be great to provide this platform for us to get to know more about their work. So thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much. Bye.